And we are live. Yes, awesome. Welcome. So my name's Isaac. I'm the co-founder of Pet Summits and the host of the Pet Care Report. The mission of this show is to connect pet parents with some of the world's leading experts and brands, discover the latest trends, innovations and essential products for optimal pet care. Today, we're very excited to have on episode 6 of the Pet Care Report a very special guest, Gwen Campbell. Gwen is the Chief Operating Officer at Naturally Healthy Pets, which is Dr. Judy, founded by Dr. Judy Morgan. She is responsible for the creation and the execution of strategy for business and growth. Gwen is passionate about ethical business practices and has been challenging the task of balancing the needs of animals for pets and their pet parents. Today, Gwen will talk about what is the number one product that every pet parent needs to know, plus the tips to help increase our pets' longevity, including how we can work with our veterinarians to achieve this. Welcome, Gwen. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We love doing stuff with you guys, so we're happy to help.
We're we love having Dr. Judy Morgan speak at our summits. She's a wealth of knowledge, and just to get what she's gone through and how she's created this information to help educate as many pet parents as possible. So I guess like today I've got a couple of questions, and I guess the number one thing on most pet parents' mind is how do we increase the longevity of our pets?
Of course, yeah, that's been, and especially with the Forever Dog book coming out with tons of research and statistics in it about dog longevity, that's become a very hot topic. So Dr. Judy actually has her top 6 ways of keeping your pet naturally healthy for both dogs and cats. But for us, it really starts with food, with nutrition. And that's Dr. Judy's, so to speak, bread and butter. But it really does transform the foundation of health for our pets, for us too. So for all of our clients, the very first thing that we're recommending is to feed your dog or your cat the highest quality food that you can. That doesn't have to be the, $10 per pound gourmet, organic, free range, grass fed, all those things. But even if you're feeding a kibble diet or a lower quality diet, just adding in some cost-effective fresh food toppers that are superfoods. So some great examples are eggs. Eggs are amazing superfood toppers. You can add that to a kibble bowl or your raw meal or gently cooked. Sardines are another one, great whole food. Mushrooms. So there are a lot of things that you can add to any bowl that are going to increase the nutritional value of that bowl. Plus,
why sardines? I hear sardines a lot. Why sardines?
Sardines, mostly for the omegas, but they're a nice small fish. So you've got the protein, you've got fat, but yeah, they're rich in omegas, which is a great anti-inflammatory, joint health, eye health, skin, allergies, all sorts of benefits there. So for us, if you can feed, organic, primarily fresh meat, and then mixed with fruits, vegetables, and some natural vitamin and mineral sources, that's ideal, but it's not possible for necessarily every pet parent. So just starting with adding as much nutritional benefit to each bowl as possible. For cats, something that is really important is cats need high meat and high moisture. So unfortunately with dogs, we'll say, okay, kibble isn't necessarily the best. We don't recommend it, but we understand, tons of dogs are eating kibble right now and surviving. However, cats really, really do poorly on dry food. It burns out their kidneys. They are carnivores, they're meat eaters. So even if, you're buying the cheapest wet cat food that's on the shelf, that's still going to be, generally speaking, long-term better for your cat. So for cats, the big thing that we try to talk to people about is getting them to eat a high meat, high moisture diet. So a wet food, a raw food, gently cooked food. And for dogs, like I said, that's adding either a fresh food kibble, eggs, sardines, blueberries, mushrooms, or just trying to increase the quality of the food that you're feeding with a higher meat diet.
Yeah, great. I really love what you've said there as well, because I guess, when you start going down the holistic path and everyone's like, I need to get organic, but that's not in everyone's budget, and people kind of just quit and I can't afford it, and maybe they just shut off to it, and it's like, well, everything is within, even when we're feeding ourselves, blueberries at the moment, just even in Australia, because we're very seasonal, the non-organic blueberries right now are $8 a punnet, and
wow.
That's not that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not blueberries in that case, but
I'm like, sorry, Frankie, you're gonna have to miss out on the blueberries for a little bit. I might get you the frozen ones.
That's a really good point, because we do see that a lot. People kind of get overwhelmed with, they think that they either have to feed kibble or, this really expensive, high quality diet. And there are tons of things you can do in the middle that work with your budget or work with your lifestyle that might not be the ideal best case scenario, but you're definitely making an impact and you're making an improvement. Same thing along those lines. We talk a lot about vaccination titers. So a lot of people don't even realize that is an option. So basically, instead of getting your pet vaccinated with everything every year or every 3 years, we know that for a lot of the core vaccines, they are lasting longer. So instead of just going in to get that vaccine every year and unnecessarily stressing your pet's immune system, you can do a titer, which basically checks to see if they're still covered. And that's something that you don't even have to worry about. So for my pets, I do titers, and I definitely am not vaccinating on the every 1 to 3 year schedule. And we're finding that Dr. Jean Dodds did a really awesome study specifically on the rabies vaccine, but we are finding in general when we do these studies that they are lasting longer. So something like that, just a lot of pet parents don't even know that's an option to even talk to their veterinarian about. Same thing with nutrition. I think it's a lot about just getting the word out there that you don't have to jump from what you're doing now to, the best case scenario. You can start small and start with stepwise, just at your visit, asking about titers, doing a little bit research about superfood toppers you can add to your pet's bowl. These are little things that you can actually do yourself that don't necessarily rely on having your veterinary medical degree.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I love about creating this company, is being a pet parent, not knowing anything and learning so much. So I didn't even know what vaccine titers were. It's just like, it's really amazing, and knowing that they don't have to be. Fortunately, in Australia, we don't need to get rabies. That's not a compulsory vaccine, but I know in other countries it is, and people are quite quite concerned about it. I think Dr. Will Falconer's got he's got a whole program on how to calm or deal with it if you have, because there is what if you don't have a choice? You live in a country and you don't have a choice,
right?
And you need to get it, and there are some times where you don't want your dog taken off you, or which can happen. So it's like, okay, well, if I need to get it, what do I need to do now? What are the things that I can do to get off there? But going back to food, I think people they make it more complicated than what it needs to be, and people are busy. There's time schedule. I'm super busy, so I get my little Frankie, like the Australian version of Farmer's Dog, which is Leica. I still cook for him, and he loves carrots as well. So he just loves carrots, and he loves to chew on a raw carrot. So I was like, there you go. Mind you, he'll eat anything. He's a French bulldog, so he.
Well, and the interesting thing is that so many veterinarians specifically will ask a pet parent, like, does your dog, mostly dogs, but cats too, does your dog or cat eat people food? And that for so long for veterinarians or for pet parents, talking to the veterinarian on this topic, that was a big no-no. Like, don't feed your dog human food or table food, whatever they want to call it. And the fears of pancreatitis or GI upset, whatever their motivations are, it's created, in my opinion, a sense of fear with pet parents where they don't feel comfortable giving their dog or cat anything besides like a big name brand, packaged food, which is sad because, it's really just a matter of, like we've been talking about, education and looking at the ingredients of what you're feeding. And you might not understand, canine or feline nutrition, but you can read a label and kind of question, okay, why is the second ingredient corn when, dogs and cats don't really have a need for any carbohydrates? And so when our some traditional veterinarians are perpetuating this, don't feed them table scraps, don't feed them human food, we are saying the opposite. And we're saying, no, and we have a really great PDF, which I can link after this, but
yeah, please do.
Is knowing what's safe and what's not safe. And we literally have a list of like foods that you should not feed your pet and foods that are great to feed your pet. And so that way, when you're cooking in the kitchen, it can literally be as easy as like, oh, hey, I wanted to steam up some broccoli as a side for my dinner tonight. I can add a few florets into my dog's bowl, and that's wonderful. But a lot of people don't even know that would A, be beneficial, and B, be safe, because for so long, we've been saying, don't feed your dog table food or table scraps. It'll give them pancreatitis or make them sick. You should only feed them their dog food, kibble brand, whatever it is. So yeah, so just briefly, some things if you want to, you're cooking up dinner and you want to share some things with your dog or cat. Cats are carnivores. Primarily raw meats are going to be the best, because uncooked fats are not going to cause pancreatitis. Cooked fats is where you can get into trouble. So that's the big difference.
Yeah.
So for my cats, like whenever I'm prepping meat, I'll usually like trim off the scraps that have extra fat or whatever. And I'll feed them to my cats and dogs raw because they're fatty pieces. A cooked lean meat, like a cooked chicken breast, is totally fine for our dogs and cats too. Fruits and vegetables, the vast majority of them are great, with the exception of like onions and avocado pits and peels. There's some nuances like that, but in general, like a lot of the fresh whole foods, the meats, the fruits, the vegetables, mushrooms, the vast majority of those are going to be safe and beneficial for our pets, with a few exceptions. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. What about broccoli? Because can you give them raw, like if they eat it, or is it best to give it cooked?
So with fruits and vegetables, basically dogs need assistance breaking down the plant cell wall. So we recommend some type of processing for fruits and vegetables. So whether that's finely chopped to help break down the cell wall if you're a big raw person, or you can gently break down the cell walls also by gently cooking. So you can saute, steam, anything like that. It's not I wouldn't say it's bad. Like if you're like, my dog loves like little baby carrots raw. I feed them to her as a treat. It's not a bad thing. It's just she's not going to be able to optimally absorb all of those nutrients without us breaking it down slightly beforehand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
So like green Juju, I don't know if you know that company, but they have some great like vegetable blends and stuff like that. And so that's what they do. Theirs are raw, but they like finely mince the ingredients, so that way it is slightly processed but still raw. So that's
okay. Yeah, and I guess I think, and even with the human side, because I'm actually getting back into training myself, and I'm looking at my calories, and then I had to change my mindset, because I was like, well, it's not the calories, food is fuel.
Yeah.
And it's like, what fuel do I need to import into my body right now to get my most optimal benefit, like what is my body, the muscles repairing that I need to do, rather than focusing on I need to cut my calories down. It's like it's a lot easier to think about cutting calories because it's just a number thing. You don't have to worry too much. But when we have a look at it, it's like, okay, well, what are the foods that I need to put into my body? And then the whole reason why we're putting this fuel source into our body is so that our body can absorb it. And if we're not, if our body can't absorb the foods in the right way, it's like because it's not cooked properly, or so that our bodies can, especially our pets, they can optimize the nutrients that we are giving them into them. So that is good, because I do give Frankie, I notice it when I just in looking at his, not that I pay too much attention, but when he does his poop, when he's had cooked carrots, it's just like, it's a lot easier. He goes to the bathroom a lot easier compared to if he's just been eating not enough vegetables, or not enough, which I guess comes to digestive, giving it more fiber. And I think
absolutely great fiber source. Yeah. And so and with the gut microbiome, when you're adding, it's, they say like 80% of our immune system is in the gut. And so food, with that being 80% of our immune system, food that is being processed by our digestive system is even more important. And protecting that microbiome and feeding it good things, like if you're into fermented foods or soil-based organisms or whatever people are into for their particular pet. But there are so many ways that we are, you can, from a food therapy perspective, we are treating or we are preventing these different ailments with nutrition. And that's 100% in control of the pet parent, because the veterinarian, they may, be scared of you if you walk in there with raw food. They always I feel like whenever I say I'm a raw feeder, everyone backs up like 5 feet, like they're going to catch it or something. It's contagious. I wish it was. But yeah, so they may, give you a little attitude about it, but they can't make you feed your pet something specific. So that, to me, is a really great way that we can help pet parents support their pet in a holistic way from home. And Dr. Judy's book, Yin and Yang Nutrition for Dogs, goes into the traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, which actually does food therapy. And so the idea behind that is feeding foods for specific ailments that are going to, so in like her chapter on heart disease, she has these foods that are blood tonics that really help the blood, things like that. And so you really can use food as medicine, but for just a starting point, adding those fresh meats, fruits, vegetables, whatever it is that you want to add to the bowl, you're going to have so many benefits that are going to help your pet. And that's the number one thing you can do for your pet at home.
Yeah, I noticed I'm not vegan, but there's a vegan place down the road that makes my own, that they make prep meals, and it's straight from an organic farm and locally in Australia. So it's organically sourced and it's fresh, and I just cook my own meat to add on top of it. My body just feels so much better when I'm getting these really fresh salads, fresh fruit and veggies that's been picked straight from the garden. I know when I haven't had that, because it's not cheap, but then when I have it in my body and I'm feeling tired and lethargic. So yeah, I definitely know how I feel about that for myself. So that just goes to with our pets, I guess.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, right? So like if you eat ice cream for a day, it doesn't undo all the good foods that you ate, right? So it doesn't, for people that don't want to completely change their diet or whatever, I want everyone to understand, even if you just start doing it occasionally or when you have the ingredients available, like any little bit is going to help for sure.
Yeah.
And I live on pizza, so I am a terrible example, but my dogs eat amazing food.
That's so funny. I guess the next question is, how can we work with our veterinarian to increase our pets' longevity?
So something that is a really good question. And obviously in our position, we understand where the traditional veterinarians are coming from on a lot of these topics. Unfortunately, these big pet food companies have infiltrated all the way into, vet schools where we are educating our next generation of veterinarians. So they are being presented with information that's already kind of skewing their view on nutrition, which is a big thing, and vaccines, these big controversial topics. So the number one thing I tell people is we have to try to have a little bit of empathy that they are, between a rock and a hard place from the education and traditional industry perspective. However, we as pet parents, we still have to advocate for our pets, and that doesn't mean that we need to be bullied into making decisions that we don't agree with. So we still recommend taking your dog or cat twice a year to the veterinarian to get a full checkup. This is really important, especially for cats. Cat parents are far less likely to take their cat to the vet because they don't show signs of symptoms. But we recommend going twice a year, getting blood work, getting a urinalysis, getting a full veterinary exam, because early detection for a lot of these illnesses can be the difference in years on your pet's life. If you start to see something come up on blood work or urinalysis, you can jump on it as soon as you find it, instead of waiting until the disease has progressed to, the later stages and you're dealing with basically like palliative care instead of actual treatments. So working with the veterinarians can, in some cases, can be tricky. In the US, we do have a good resource. It's the AHVMA, which does have a list of holistic veterinarians. So if you can find one, that's great. Even if you can't find a holistic veterinarian, just having an open line of conversation with your views and just being nice about it, but explaining that you love your animal, you want the best for them, you have some concerns with X, Y, and Z, and making it a conversation instead of a confrontation. I have an issue every time I go to the vet. It's just funny because I feel like I shouldn't, but I do. And so I feel the pain points, right? Like I got asked, I took my dog in she had to have plates removed from her leg from an orthopedic surgery. Had really nothing to do with anything else related to like vaccines or nutrition or whatever. And they asked me if she was eating grains. And I was like, why are you asking if she's eating grains? They're like, oh, because of the whole dilated cardiomyopathy debacle. And then I said, no, I'm feeding her a raw diet, and it's 90% meat, which is plenty of taurine and all that stuff. And they just kind of looked at me like I had three heads, like, what? Like, you feed what? And so I know what it feels like when you want your veterinarian to be like supporting you and be like, wow, you're doing such a good job. Like you're feeding this awesome food, you're titering, you're not using these dangerously and tick chemicals, like good job, right? And instead you feel criticized or feel like your veterinarian, like looks down on you as a pet parent for doing things wrong. And that is a dynamic that I have felt, and I really think that we all need to work together to change it, as cliche as it sounds, because the veterinarians are in a little bit of a tough spot. I think they need to step up to the plate a bit and just do some further research and education on a lot of these topics, because there's tons of mounting evidence coming out. Finally talking about these things that we've been talking about for years at this point. But as the pet parents, becoming as educated and empowered as you can be, and having those conversations with your veterinarian, not being bullied into things, but it also doesn't have to be a battle, right? You can respect each other's differences.
I know one thing that's always made me laugh is I played a lot of high-level sports here in Australia, and we would, like, part of it, we would get given nutritionists, and the higher up we played, the better nutritionists that we got. But then when we were younger, some of these nutritionists, and they're overweight, and they try and like, yes, they know the theory side of things, but I was like, well, you're overweight. Why am I going to listen to you? Like, sometimes you got to practice what you preach, and it's just like your personal trainer. If I'm going to get personal training, I was like, well, I want to have a look at because basically they're living what they're talking about, and not all
Right.
personal trainers are healthy, but some of the information that we're getting, and I think Dr. Katie Woodley was telling us that like in the veterinarian school they only do like an hour, a couple of hours worth of nutritional information.
Right. It's
So
very short, and it's still so they have those prescription diets, and so a lot of the education is around basically like when to prescribe a certain prescription diet, which isn't even nutrition education. So it's very limited in most cases, and when they do get nutrition education, it's usually related to like prescription diets.
Yeah, I know. I was at puppy school, and this is just I think I was either listening to Katie's summit or we did the holistic summit. So all this information about nutrition, and then they were trying to tell me to put my dog on prescription diets. I'm like, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah. It's always, like as a pet parent, I feel like it's hard because you're like, obviously you're like the veterinarian is the professional. I don't want to be one of those people. And I'm like, I have a little bit of social anxiety where I'm like, I don't want to like rock the boat here, but I don't agree with you. And so it's really, really tough. And I would say, finding a community is really helpful. Like what you guys put on with the pet summits, and what I know Dr. Katie has a little community that she has. We have a community. Dr. Becker and Rodney have a community. So just joining these kind of like natural pet care communities, I think is really helpful for people because you find people that are in similar situations as you, and you feel more confident that what you're doing is the right decision for your pet, even in those cases when you feel like you're maybe getting some pushback from a professional like a veterinarian. And even Dr. Judy, veterinarians that don't know who she is, if she's going to a specialist or something, will give her advice that's just really off the wall. And she's just like, it happens to everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, sometimes it's just even with myself, I'm listening to different experts about different topics. There's some things I don't agree with, but then there are a lot of things that I do agree with. And whatever I don't with, I just take it in, and whatever I don't, I don't bother. And
yeah, and not shooting for perfection. What we were talking about with nutrition, I think that's important too with just in general these vet visits, because I Dr. Judy's my mom. I have her on call essentially. So there have been so many times I've been in the middle of a vet visit and I'm like, can you hold on 1 second while I make a phone call? And I will literally call her up on the phone and be like, they want me to take home these 4 medications. They want me to do this surgery. I'm freaking out because I don't really know what the right decision is. And so I think, and there have been times where looking back in the decisions I've made in my pet's care, there are definite things that I know now I would not repeat. Like I just know better now than I did when I made that decision. And I think for a lot of us, we have to not beat ourselves up over the fact that when we learn that we did something maybe that wasn't the greatest, or we made a decision that wasn't supporting our pet's health the way we thought we were, that's okay. It happens. And it's just, as soon as you know better, just try to do better, because that's happened to me before. Like I had an emergency situation with my cat, and they wouldn't let him in the building until he got a rabies vaccine, because he's an indoor only cat that hadn't been vaccinated in basically 10 years or something, because he doesn't go outside. He's no exposure. And in that situation, I was like, okay, well, either my cat gets seen or he doesn't, and in hindsight, would I have made the same decision to give him the vaccine? No, I absolutely would not. I would have said, are you crazy? Like, I'm going somewhere else. But in the moment, I panicked and I wanted my cat to have veterinary care. And that happens all the time, where with these prescriptions or food or whatever it is. So just for pet parents to know that they're not alone, and we all make decisions that maybe in hindsight we would have done something differently, and that's okay too.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to just get a second opinion.
Yeah, that's good advice too.
Third opinion. I have narcolepsy, and I wasn't diagnosed until I saw like 4 different specialists, and they were like, nah, nothing wrong with you. And then it was like, oh, there you go. So
yeah, and we see that so often, especially, you know, with like gut health. I know Dr. Katie has she might still have a course on it or something, but I know she has tons of. She's got tons of awesome resources on gut health. But a lot of those cases that get diagnosed as like an IBD or whatever, traditional veterinary medicine just does not do very well, because they're not, most of them aren't trying to actually fix the root cause of the issue. It's just adding on these traditional medications that may or may not work when you're not fixing the root cause. And so in the holistic space, it's pretty awesome, because we never really, I can't think of a single case where we have run out of things to do for a pet. There's always something that you can do. And that's been really a blessing for so many animals, because you can, even in our little circle, you can get so many different opinions and just find what works best for you and your pet. A bunch of these veterinarians are doing online consultations too, where you don't even have to live in their area to get a consultation with them. That's a very helpful thing too. I did that with my horse, actually.
And just for that peace of mind to know, or even if you're about to go into your local vet, say, okay, this is what's going on. How do I communicate to my vet? Because I think that's also, it's not the traditional vets necessarily even their fault. It's just like, if we can't communicate to them, or we don't know how to communicate to them in a way to get to an open conversation, for them to, because they're the veterinarians are crazy busy, and then and if they got a pet parents, it's like, listen, I know more than you. But if you're able to have an open conversation with them and ask the right questions, and that's like with any conversation that we have with anybody in any topic, you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And being able to, and if you do, it's like, okay, go onto the BMA side, or Dr. Judy Morgan, Katie Woodley does consults. I think Odette and Dr. Ava, many veterinarians do.
Yeah, a lot of the holistic veterinarians are doing online stuff.
Yeah, so just for that peace of mind to go in there. I guess the next question that I do have, which I really want to know more about, and I really quite love, is what would be the number one product that every pet parent needs to know about?
Yeah, so this is a good question, and the reason why I wanted us to talk about nutrition and those other things first is because we have a huge warehouse and store of naturally healthy pet products that Dr. Judy has looked over and personally recommends and would personally use for her animals. So we talk a lot about products because we research a lot about products. That's one of the big services that we've started offering for pet parents in this community or that are interested. But I think it's important to remember that you can't out supplement or out product things like a poor diet or a protein sensitivity if you're feeding something they're sensitive to. So that's why I wanted to talk about that first, because at the end of the day, we really have to have that solid foundation for our pets to actually be naturally healthy and live a long time. However, the one thing that we have found that the vast majority of pet parents neglect, and that is super important for health and longevity, is the dental health of our pets, both cats and dogs. And so something really interesting is that there's a very large genetic component to this. And I found, I knew this before, but I had a personal experience with my cats. I did the base paws genetic testing, and one of the services they offer is a dental health report. And on a scale from 1 to 10, they give you it's basically how bad your cat's dental health is projected to be based on their genetic results. And both of my cats were a 9 and a 9.5 out of 10. And they do have horrible teeth. They always have. And they're fed a raw diet. They're on all these awesome natural supplements. I use some dental health products, but there is a huge genetic component. And so before I started using high quality dental health products, I was paying for my cats to get anesthetic dentals every single year because their teeth are just naturally horrible. So my favorite, of course, is Dr. G's Dental Health Formula. The reason why we love this formula so much is because the ingredients are super clean, and they also were handpicked for all of their benefits. So you can it comes in little drops. It also comes in a spray. And if you mix it with coconut oil, you can make a little toothpaste you can scrub on with a baby toothbrush. So for Dr. G's Dental Health Formula, we talked about this before we went live, but the first ingredient is deer antler velvet, which is becoming a lot more common, but people still aren't super familiar with it. So the deer antler velvet is in a lot of Dr. Judy's products. We're very passionate about it. It basically is loaded with growth factors. So great for healing red blood cell production. It's also great for tissue repair. So when we're using this in the mouth, you think about if they have gingivitis, ulcers, things like that on the gum line specifically, the deer antler velvet is going to be really, really helpful. And you can also use this if your pet goes in for an anesthetic dental and has to have teeth removed. That you can also use the dental health formula to help heal the extractions, which is really nice.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Barry about it, and when it for the healing component, and it said it works so well that it heals up a little bit too quickly sometimes.
Yeah. It depends on the extractions.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, these are only going to be used for a few drops in the mouth, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But
so you just spray that, or do you how do you apply it?
Yeah, so it comes in either a spray top, which I recommend for any medium and large size dogs because it's so easy. I have a big dog. Just lift up her lip and just one spray on each side. Basically, you want it to just stay along the gum line. So we also have a dropper top. So you just want to drop along the gum line on each side, just a drop or two. For my cats, by far the easiest thing to do is to put it on either a little finger toothbrush or my finger. So that way I don't have to get a bulky dropper or anything in their mouth. But it just depends. We have some clients that are amazing and they can actually brush their cat's teeth. So they'll just mix it with a little bit of coconut oil and a few drops and actually can brush their cat's teeth. I dropped the ball when my cats were young. And I've only had the one since he was young, but yeah, brushing teeth has not happened for my cats yet, but I really should work on that because it's super important.
Man, my Frankie just fights me. I've got to hold him. It's come on, and he just won't let me put my finger in his mouth. But he loves the taste of the coconut oil, and
my cat actually
baking soda. Loves
it too. Yeah. So I think, and one of besides the fact that just dental disease is so common in our cats and dogs, it's 80% or 70% after the age of 1 or 2. I'll look up that statistic, but it's so common in our pets, and it actually can cause diseases down the line, like different lung disease, kidney disease, heart diseases. So it's actually really important to your overall health. And we know that for people too. If your teeth are rotting, it's introducing all sorts of bad bacteria into your body. So we know that it's an issue. We know that it causes health issues down the line. However, how many pet parents are really taking care of their dog or cat's dental care every single day, right? Not very many. But how many people are brushing their teeth every day? Probably the vast majority in America.
You want to hope so.
Yeah. And so it's just interesting because it's really important for us and it's part of our daily routine. But when I've talked to hundreds of pet parents about this, and only, I would say a small minority are actually taking care of their dog's dental health every year or every day. And so that's a great thing to ask your veterinarian about as well if you're going to those biannual vet visits, to really check the teeth of your cat or dog, because they can tell you what their dental status is, if it looks like they're developing gingivitis, if any of the roots are exposed, if it looks like there's a tooth that is cracked or damaged. So your veterinarian can give you really great insight on that. And then there's a lot you can do at home with these natural dental health products to keep your dogs and cats naturally healthy.
So I guess if we were like with Dr. Judy Morgan's spray, would that be just the same as the way that we would use mouthwash? Like we don't replace brushing teeth, but we still use mouthwash to clean, clean any different types of diseases, bacteria that could be sitting in there. Is that kind of like the same philosophy?
Yeah, that's kind of the analogy I give people as well. Our number one suggestion is to brush the teeth with the coconut oil dental drop combination, because you actually get the friction and the action of knocking some of that plaque and bacteria off the teeth. But yes, if you're using just the drops alone, it's similar, I would say, to like using a mouthwash, which is between brushing your teeth and doing nothing. It's better than nothing. And for a lot of pet parents, the idea of brushing your dog or cat's teeth, I know for me, if someone told me to do that, I'd be like, why don't you try first? Let me know how it goes. So it's just one of those things that seems like so daunting, and you're like, my cat is gonna hate that, versus just 1 or 2 drops. It's so much easier and more manageable, and it's a stepping stone. That's my big thing this year. It's like with nutrition, with dental health, like if you can just do one step above where you're at now, just adding in. And on the drjudymorgan.com, we also have, it's called Dog Breath Light, but it can actually be added to their drinking water. So, these are all things that aren't going to be as effective and as good as brushing your dog's teeth twice a day. However, it's much better than the nothing that most pet parents are doing right now.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, our animals can't speak to us. So by the time we notice that there are some health problems, now we're playing catch up, and it's probably going on for a long time. So prevention is always the best, and that's that way we can detect any early illnesses. We are getting close to running out of time. I guess, was there any questions that popped up that you wanted to quickly address, and then we can add a few links to where people can find out about Dr. Judy?
Oh, sure. Where are the questions?
In the comments section on the.
Oh, I see. Oh, geez. Okay. I was on the private chat, so I was like, I guess no one's here. Early detection. You take your cat and dog once a year for full blood panels. That's amazing. Yes, absolutely do that. Is blended okay? I think that was back when we were talking about like fruits and vegetables. Yeah. So yeah, you just want to like if you have like a food processor, a blender, like you just want to break it down into fine as pieces as you can. And the more fine of a grind, the better if you're going to feed it raw. But like we were talking about, like a blended batch of vegetables, maybe if you want to lightly cook it, steam it, saute it, it's going to be a great topper for your dog. Yeah, I think that was it. I don't see any more questions.
No, I think that is it. I guess the next thing, but you mentioned a couple of resources that sounded really interesting when we're talking about nutrition. If you can put that into the Facebook, unless you have it now, but we'll put that in there. Okay. I think this is where people can find out, for those of you that are watching live, find out more about Dr. Judy Morgan. And then we've also got this site here. Just putting this in the chat.
Yeah, we have on the drjudymorgan.com website, if you use the search box, we have it's a free PDF that I was talking about earlier, the foods to avoid feeding your dog. So that's like the table food that you should avoid. And then we also conversely have superfoods to improve your pet's diet. So those are 2 free resources that we talked about that are on the website.
Yeah, cool. We'll put a link to that in our Facebook group as well. Gwen, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I've learned so much. I hope everyone else that turned up live and then gets to watch the recording also learns a lot about what you guys do. And thank you again to Dr. Judy Morgan for all of her amazing work. So yeah, have an amazing day. And I look forward to working with you guys again soon.
Thank you. Sounds good. And we're super excited for the Dog Detox Summit coming up next week.
Coming up next week. So
yeah,
for those of you guys that
awesome.
haven't register now.
Yep. We'll post a link tonight too. How about that?
Yeah, great.